Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video we're going to give some feedback on Oydinoy's speaking test. An incredibly strong performance. Let's see just how strong it is. Good morning, my name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
I am Oydinoy. You can call me Oydinoy.
Okay, thank you, Oydinoy. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. What town or city do you live in?
I live in Andijan, a city known for being a part of the Fergana Valley.
Cool, a city known for, this is an embedded relative clause, or rather a reduced relative clause, a city which is known for. So a city known for, cool. Great grammar immediately, and this nice collocation, known for. And do you like living in this place?
Yes, I do.
Cool, love the use of the auxiliary too. I've mentioned this before, but I feel like this is such an underrated little piece of grammar, this use of auxiliary verbs in English. Okay.
I like my neighborhood a lot. I haven't been to outskirts of my city, but
Okay, the outskirts of my city is correct, but okay.
I believe they're also beautiful. And what I like most is like the neighborhood and how everything is very close to the place where I live.
Cool. What I like most is, so great, cleft sentence, very nice. And has the town or city changed in recent times?
Oh yes, I can say that it has seen like a huge change.
Cool. It has seen a huge change. So nice use of that verb see. We could say experienced or witnessed, but seen is absolutely fine. And again, present perfect. It has seen a huge change. Nice.
In terms of new buildings.
Love this in terms of, very good.
Almost everywhere I can see like this construction sites and
again, maybe not this construction sites, but these construction sites. So just tiny, tiny little mistakes.
high-rise buildings. So it's getting very crowded.
And do you think you will continue living in this place in the future?
I'm not very sure.
Nice intonation. I'm not very sure. So you can really see, you can hear that intonation.
It really depends on my, let's say, my lifestyle. Maybe if I get married and move to some places, or but if it's like my choice, I would prefer staying here with my family and my friends.
So again, I would prefer to stay is probably a little more natural than I would prefer staying, but okay. Let's talk about education now. What was your favorite subject in school?
Definitely English. English has always been like,
Cool. So again, I love the direct answer and then some development. And we don't always need those full sentences, right? A lot of people, when they first start learning English, they get locked into repeating full sentences. My favorite subject at school was definitely English. Now, of course, when you're training, when you're first learning English and you're learning how to speak in sentences, we want our students to do that. But of course, in natural natural conversations, we would expect to hear, oh, definitely English. Great. So we have a direct answer and then some backup, some follow-up. All good natural stuff.
my passion. I remember being like a 10-year-old girl and listening to English songs and trying to sing along.
Cool. Nice, Jared. I remember being a 10-year-old girl. So nice pre-modification of girl there. A 10-year-old girl, not a 10 years old girl, but a 10-year-old girl. So that's pretty precise.
And I had this very wonderful teacher at school who
Again, very wonderful. Again, I mean, very wonderful. I know L1 users who might say very wonderful. Now, according to the rules, of course, wonderful is a strong adjective, and we don't use very with strong adjectives. Really wonderful, yes. Absolutely wonderful, yes. Very wonderful. It's a little bit odd.
actually gave me this kind of love. Like she actually showed me love to this language.
And did you ever have any problems with any of your school teachers?
Not really. I
Not really. Again, really nice intonation.
was a very friendly student, and I had
and really get that American vowel sound there, and really nice, nails it.
very good relationship with teachers.
And that are very, very.
But I can say that I had like one history teacher who was a bit biased towards
Again, that what we call non-prevocalic R. Sorry, that's a strange non-prevocalic R. The Americans' computer refrigerator teacher. So, American English, absolutely fine. A very prestigious variety of English. Candidate has a lot of American features in her pronunciation, but it's really, really, nailed on, like really hitting those sounds like perfectly.
students so that he would lower me, like he would give me like low marks for
Okay, so she corrects herself here. A little bit of self-correction is fine. Instead of lower me, give me lower marks. Yeah, she finds the best
no
alternative.
reason.
And are there any things you'd like to learn more about in the future?
Well, if it's like in terms of subjects or languages, I would really love to learn French. Actually, I had this subject at university.
Yeah, how is this flow of speech here? I mean, it's very, very strong, but I'm thinking in terms of 8 or 9, and maybe the flow of the speech is just a little bit closer to an 8 than it is a 9. Just listen to the answer again here. I don't know, you tell me.
Well, if it's like in terms of subjects or
Well, if it's like in terms of subjects, just a slight problem with the flow. No, I don't know.
languages, I would really love to learn French. Actually, I had this subject at university for 2 years. It was very difficult,
Now the flow is absolutely fine.
but since then, I've been thinking about like taking
Cool, again, nails that grammar. Since then, I've been thinking about, activates that present perfect continuous and uses it naturally. Good stuff.
some courses.
Let's talk about movies now. What type of movies do you enjoy watching?
I'm very into romantic comedy.
Cool, I'm very into, really good stuff.
I love how everything is like so realistic.
Okay, so I want to make this point. Candid says here, I love how everything is so realistic. Now, do I believe that romantic comedies are realistic? Personally, no. I find them incredibly unrealistic. For me, there's so much like supernatural, there are so many supernatural elements to these stuff. And it's like, oh, that would never happen in real life. But would I mark the candidate down for this? Absolutely not. If the candidate finds romantic comedies realistic, and if that's one thing she likes about them, it's that they ring true for her, the examiner has absolutely no business marking her down. Now, I was accused of this on a different video, on a writing video, of saying, oh, you mark your candidates down because you disagree with their points of view. No, I don't. And this is an example where I 100% disagree with Oydinoy here about romantic comedies being realistic. I find them absolutely ridiculously unrealistic. And I don't really like romantic comedies, although some Korean ones are okay. But of course, I would never mark a candidate down just because we have a different taste in movies or a different taste in music.
And I don't really like fantasy or science fiction because I need
Cool. Candidate activates that topic specific language, right? Fantasy, science fiction.
something relatable to my life. So
I would say that sci-fi is far more relatable than rom-coms, but again, this IELTS test isn't about, can you impress the examiner by showing the examiner that you have the same tastes as the examiner? Absolutely not. If you prefer rom-coms and if they're more relatable than sci-fi, absolutely fine.
their actions, their lifestyle kind of aligns with mine, and I can
Nice, aligns with all good stuff.
adapt something or learn a lesson.
And do you have a favorite actor or director?
I would say it is Lily Collins. She's a very famous actress in Emily in Paris. And again, it's the something this like TV series has actually very like evoked this love for French culture, and her performance
Good use of evoke too.
was over the top, I would say.
I don't think over the top is the right word here. Usually over the top has a negative connotation. So, when we say something is over the top, it's like it's too much in a bad way. Maybe something out of this world. Her performance was just out of this world. Probably more appropriate. But okay, a decent attempt.
Okay.
And how often do you go to the cinema?
Not as often as I would like to, because
Again, so nice. Not as often as I would like to. Again, it's a fragment of a sentence. It's not a whole sentence, but it's absolutely fine as a short answer. And the grammar is not as often as. So, first of all, we have a comparative adverb, not as often as I would like to. And we have some ellipsis here, not as often as I would like to. Great. Really, really good stuff.
I don't know, our cinemas don't really broadcast or show like you know
Yeah, again, fluency maybe this little bit of I'm talking about the pause before broadcast. Our cinemas don't really broadcast. I think that is just a slight pause to try to find the correct word. What do you think?
not as often as I would like to, because I don't know, our cinemas don't really broadcast
Our cinemas don't really broadcast. For me, this hesitation is probably just to access the specific precise word. Now, she gets the right word. I mean, I would just go with show, but okay, broadcast, absolutely fine. But I feel like there is just that slight bit of hesitation before finding that word broadcast that might pull that fluency just down to an 8.
or show like you know very popular films.
Now, this hesitation for me is absolutely fine. I don't think she was thinking of the word popular films. I think she was just hesitating to prepare some content. So, it's always a difficult thing for examiners to make that judgment of, is the hesitation caused by trying to find a word? Is the hesitation caused by preparing content? In some cases, it's very obvious, and in other cases, it can be a little bit more difficult. I love her pronunciation of films, by the way. It's a very kind of Irish pronunciation. So in British English, we usually use this films with this la 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 la, not the la 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 la. There are like dark L's and soft L's. Sorry, dark L's and light L's in English. Films. Candidate pronounces it films. Films. But for me, that's an acceptable pronunciation of the word films.
We have all these dull and useless films that I don't really
Again, all this dull and useless films. So we had this construction sites and this dull and useless films. So for me, using this with a plural isn't an example of like a mistake that native L1 user, native speaker would make. And so that might just, might that be evidence enough for an examiner to say, well, grammatical accuracy, not quite there. We'll see. The grammatical range, I have to say, is absolutely out of this world. But just a couple of those small mistakes, could that be the difference between an 8 and a 9? I'm definitely thinking 8 and 9 for everything. I'm not thinking 7 for anything. But let's keep going.
like comedies. But I would say like once in a month.
Once a month is more common than once in a month. Again, just these tiny minor errors. And what was the last movie you watched?
It was last year, Willy Wonka by starring Timothy. Oh, I'm not sure about his
And again, is this a breakdown in fluency? No, she just forgot Timothy Chalamet's name. That's fine. If you forget a name and there's a hesitation because of that, okay, fine. That happens to me like every day.
name, like Timothy, the actor. And I didn't really like it. Again, it was a bit of fantasy, and I was expecting something more.
Okay, thank you. Now, in this next. All right, so comments on part one. Candidate is very comfortable. Candidate's pronunciation is out of this world, super on point. There may have been just a couple of cases of slightly dubious chunking. So chunking is the way that we group words together. Sometimes, of course, there is an effect between that fluency and pronunciation. But for me, the pronunciation really, really is on point. In terms of grammar, the grammatical range is incredible, but there are a couple of those tiny little mistakes there. Fluency, again, fluency is generally very, very strong. I thought the first couple of answers, maybe the flow wasn't quite perfect, the flow of speech, perhaps The way she develops her answers, though, is amazing. Really like the fact that she has this, I don't know if it's a strategy or a natural way of answering these questions, where she answers directly with a short answer and then follows it up with like fuller sentences. The length of the answers are just entirely appropriate. She's developing appropriately without overspeaking, without going off topic. Exam technique really seems to be like on the money, really seems to be perfect. In terms of vocab, again, such an amazing range, but a couple of cases of like once in a month instead of once a month, and her performance was over the top instead of out of this world. You know, some of the smallest types of inaccuracies. So already, you know, usually after one or two answers, I think most examiners, after just asking like two questions, you can kind of give them an approximate score. I'm already thinking she exceeds the 7 in everything so far. The question now is, how do we choose between the 8s and the 9s? And for me, her pronunciation seems to be a 9. Vocab could definitely be there. Grammar could definitely be there. Fluency and coherence is probably at an 8. Interesting to see. Let's keep going. Let's see how she does. I'm guessing it's going to be 8.5, maybe 8.0. Let's keep going. It's part of the test. I'm going to give a logical gadget. So, candidate needs to speak about a technological gadget she finds useful. This is a present time part 2, so you don't have that opportunity to exploit all of our beautiful narrative tenses. Like some part 2s, they ask you to talk about the past and you have to tell a story. This one is a present focused one. Lots of vocab could be activated here, connected to a technological gadget. Let's see how the candidate does. You find useful. Okay, so that's the end of your preparation. And the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Okay. Let me tell you about my favorite device.
Great. Let me tell you about love that way to start.
It is my laptop. So the story how I got it was very interesting. Last year on my birthday, my parents decided to surprise me and gave me something very useful. And it was a brand new laptop.
Cool. So you can feel that emotion coming through the pronunciation, and it was a brand new laptop. She feels excited, right? You can hear that in her voice that she's echoing the excitement that she felt at the time in the speech that she's giving.
Uh, Not to mention the color. It's like gray, like silver gray, I would say, and
Okay, I mean, that could be a relevant detail, I guess. I would want us to keep going here.
very stylish, something that I would always love. And so since then, I have been using it almost every day.
Call again, we get that present perfect continuous.
I never knew that laptop is way better than computer.
So it's maybe the slightest mistake with like sequence of tenses. I never knew past that a laptop was way better than a computer. You could argue that that is a grammatical mistake. I would argue that that's the type of grammatical mistake that we could expect from an L1 user. For me, it's not a mistake. I don't think this sequence of tenses rules I don't think this sequence of tense rule always has to be followed. In fact, it doesn't always have to be followed. And for me, it's acceptable here that I never knew that a laptop is better than a computer. For me, it's acceptable. I wouldn't mark her down for that.
So it's like actually a game changer. I would always
Activating that idiomatic language. And again, I mean, does it feel forced? You could, I think maybe she's trying to activate it, but I think it works, yeah, kind of. I mean, it's not 100%. I mean, it stands out a little bit. So just be careful with that. You don't want to overuse. You don't want to overuse bits of language just because you think they are like, "Ooh, this is a nice little bit of language." We always want to use that naturally emerging language, not the language that we are kind of trying to force in because we're trying to score marks. Your vocab is already out of this world, so you don't need to. I would say, worry less about if you are, worry less about trying to force that word in. If game changer is the word that naturally came to your mind, use it. Fine. If game changer wasn't a word that naturally came to your mind in that moment, and it was something that you thought before the test, like, ooh, I'm going to try to use game changer, then yeah, I would recommend not doing that.
Be in favor of like computers because I thought that they were better, more
Computers, because I thought that they were better. Intonation, really on point.
like stronger. But laptop are on the other hand,
Laptop are?
they can be like
Laptops?
they are portable. So I can just take them with me whenever or wherever I go and use them without
Again, use them. It's unclear if we're talking about the laptop that she got from her parents or if she's talking about laptops in general. But even if she's talking about laptops in general, I mean, usually people don't walk around with two laptops and think about laptops as something you have two of, right? Like you might think of something like I don't know what we have two of, chopsticks, right? Oh yeah, with chopsticks I use them, they are good because chopsticks always come in a pair. Laptops generally don't come in a pair. Laptops generally come as one thing. And so using them to talk about laptops for me is a little bit strange with coherence.
thinking about the electricity or without thinking about like I need uh, like charger.
And I don't know if that's true. Is it? I mean, is there anyone else out there that takes their laptop around with them and they don't need to worry about whether they have their charger? Because whenever I take my laptop out, I always make sure I have my charger. Um, I don't know how long the battery life is in your laptop.
So I use my laptop for different reasons, ranging from
Cool, for different reasons, and then ranging from nice participle clause.
entertainment, like watching films, TV series, to my work.
Cool, and really getting that collocation, ranging from da 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 to my work, so she still gets that preposition, and that's a difficult thing to do. You either need a good memory or you need a really good feel for the language to collocate that preposition to ranging when ranging happened quite far back in the sentence, right? I use my laptop for a lot of things, ranging from da 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 da, da ranging from watching films and movies to something else. Yeah, good.
I actually use it like originally I wanted to use it only for work
I wanted to. So notice this elision, the disappearing T. I wanted to. So this is a feature of connected speech, which is what we like when we're looking for high level pronunciation. I wanted to. So sometimes certain letters disappear from words in English, and this in pronunciation, if my theory serves me correctly, is called elision, eliding the T.
purposes, but then I have decided to take it with me. Uh,
Yeah, but then I decided to is probably better than then I have decided to. When we talk about when we're in a narrative, when we're telling stories, we tend not to use this present perfect. And then I did something, and not and then I have done something.
home. So I think that this is like the best thing that I have ever possessed and owned. Like
I will say that maybe the flow of part two here isn't. I don't know how she spent her 1 minute preparing. It doesn't seem like she has the best strategy of making progress. She's adding a lot of detail, but for me, perhaps she's adding a little bit too much detail. And yeah, I don't know. For me, it's the best thing I've ever owned. Fine. I like going through my part twos just step by step. I like talking about the gadget or an introductory sentence. I like speaking a little bit about, what it is, adding a few things, how long I've had it, adding a few things, how often I use it, adding a few things. I try to get this first part done in a minute, and then I like to have 1 minute where I'm kind of freestyling on the second question. That's the way that I like doing it. There are, of course, other strategies, and there are some experts that say, don't worry about those suggested questions, those suggested talking points. You don't have to cover those ones. You should add different, you should say questions. There are different strategies out there, but what we always want to see is a nice, cohesive text, a spoken text, which has some element of progress. Like kind of it feels like a beginning, feels like a middle, or feels like an end, or feels like a first half, feels like a second half. And it just seems, I don't know, again, I'm being very, very nitpicky. The candidate's fluency is great. The candidate's coherence is very strong. I'm just thinking about it in terms of a nine. Is there really enough flow that really captures the listener's attention? And for me, maybe not. Maybe there are just a few extra details that just feel slightly, outside that zone of focus where it should be. Like talking about the color, sure, that could be a relevant detail to saying what it is. Oh, it's a laptop and something I always wanted to have. And, one thing I like is the color. It's like gray, but it's kind of silvery, which is stylish, which is important to me. I don't know if that's, yeah, it might just be slightly outside the zone of focus. But again, I'm very strict with the marking here because I am trying to understand if the candidate is band 9, band 8.
Like it cannot be compared to my phone or to my
Cool. Passive infinitive cannot be compared to.
tablet. It has so much more to offer me, and
Cool. So much more to offer. Nice.
I love the way it has like this big screen,
Okay,
and I
thank
can
you. Again, it just feels like she's just adding details and then adding another detail and adding a bit more detail. So I think, the candidate could do with a little bit of training in part two about how we take our notes and how we exploit our notes, and the difference between developing, when you have a question either in part one or part three, how we develop that will be different to how we structure a long turn, because long turns are much more difficult in terms of that cohesion. So yeah, candidate could benefit from a little bit of training there. I don't think anyone can help her more with part one. I think it's just perfect. But part two, you can see that the technique is, there is a little room for improvement. Let's get to part three. All right, so you've been talking about your laptop. Let's talk about technology in general now. How has technology changed the way that we communicate?
Oh, I believe it had a very huge impact on
Say had or has had? I think has had is better here.
people's communication styles. Um, the very first reason I believe would be how it facilitated our pace of communication.
It facilitated our pace of communication. Language feels a little bit academic, the appropriacy of the language. Is it really suitable for a speaking test? Maybe. I mean, we are speaking now in part three, which tends to be like higher brow subjects, but still, I don't see the need to facilitate the pace of our conversations. I think something a lot more natural is like, oh, it makes our conversation a lot faster. That might sound to the average person like, oh, that's not as impressive as it facilitates the pace of our conversations. But in terms of having a representation of like natural English usage, none of my friends would say technology has facilitated the pace of conversations or communication. None of them would. All of my friends would say, yeah, technology's made communication a lot faster, isn't it? And so we are looking more for that second natural use rather than that academic use of language.
Now it's way easier to reach out.
Way easier. Again, you might not notice this, but these are called qualifying adverbs with comparatives. It's way easier. Most of us know it's a lot easier or it's much easier. You might even know it's far easier, but also it's way easier. Love this. Love it.
Um, far distant friend who lives across the world, and also
Across the world. We might say on the other side of the world, but across the world.
it's very
Sorry, I don't know what that sound was. Anyway,
easy to send messages, and this new functions when you can postpone the message to
again, did we get this new functions? Is that the third time? Let's just listen to that.
send messages, and this new functions when you
Is it a pronunciation mistake? Is she trying to say these, but it sounds like this? Or is it a grammar mistake where she's using this instead of these, this for with a plural noun? Not easy to tell.
Can postpone the message to like a set timer before going to sleep, for example. Like
So she's explaining, a fairly, not the most complicated thing in the world, but not an easy thing to explain. But she's doing a good job of explaining it.
a friend of mine is having a birthday and I want to congratulate on at midnight,
And really, like this example backs up her point so well.
but I want to sleep. So I just set a timer to my message and it just delivers by the time I'm sleeping.
Cool. So it's a fair point. Do you think technology can help us to be happier?
For sure, yes.
Again, we get that nice short answer. For sure, yes. So you're never in doubt about the candidate's position. Sometimes you ask candidates questions and they start speaking immediately, and they're about 5 or 10 or 15 words in, and you still don't know what their position is. You might ask someone like, "Do you think technology can make people happier?" And they might start with something like, "Oh, well, technology nowadays has a number of different things which, could affect a person's mood in perhaps a positive or even a negative way." And it's like, okay, but let's answer that question directly. We don't have this problem with this candidate. Her answers are like, her position is clear immediately, and she follows it up and backs it up nicely.
I can't think of downsides that this technology make can make us feel negative. Like
Again, there is a slight breakdown in fluency there. And you can kind of see on the candidate's face just a little bit of discomfort, perhaps.
I mean, like unhappy.
Usually, when candidates close their eyes, this is sometimes a sign of discomfort.
So I feel like seeing your loved ones, even like through the monitor or screen, kind of brings joy to the life. So it kind of makes you feel more connected to your relatives and friends.
Why do you think some older people avoid new technology?
I guess they are afraid of this changes.
Again, we get this changes, right? Am I the only one hearing it? This changes, but again, the position is clear. I guess they might be afraid, and again, I love this. I guess that, right? This is a hedger, so we've had some boosters like yes, definitely, and now we get some hedging. I guess that. Now this is a part of flexibility. One question that I think probably 90% of people in the English teaching, English learning world don't really know is this idea of flexibility and what exactly it is. If you read the band descriptors, you will see this word flexibility appearing again and again. And flexibility can be in pronunciation, in vocab, in grammar, and in fluency and coherence. For me, this is a great example of flexibility in fluency and coherence. That for some questions she's able to speak in like more absolutist terms, in stronger terms. Yes, absolutely, definitely. But with other questions, where she's not quite so sure, she uses this nice functional language, these discourse markers, a little bit of modality to say, "Oh, I guess they are afraid of this new technologies. I guess." Cool, nice little modal clause there. Yeah, such things exist.
They are living in the past, thinking that that's not the style people
Game participle, they're living in the past thinking that. Cool.
should communicate. Face-to-face conversations are better. They don't want to embrace this.
Game, we get that eliding T. They don't want to, they don't, and then we get that want to. So we get this catenation closing that word boundary. Want to, we don't get want to, we just get that one T. Want to, want to, want to. They don't want to, they don't want to. Good stuff.
Advancements in technologies. I believe they give a try and just be like more kind of,
Give a try. I don't know.
you know,
Give it a go, maybe.
more okay with using them, not reluctant. I believe that that could
Good. She finds reluctant. That's a great word. They're very precise.
change their lives as well.
Do you think younger people should perhaps encourage their grandparents to embrace these new technologies?
Yes, for sure. I believe youngsters should give a hand to their grandparents, just to take it easy, like teach some
Yeah, just be careful. Give a hand, take it easy. You know, some idiomatic language, absolutely fine. We definitely don't want to overuse these idiomatic constructions. It's great that you know them, but yeah, take it easy. Don't go over the top with them.
very basic skills, like basic stuff, how to turn on the camera or FaceTime, and how to use Telegram, for instance. I have seen actually courses for like for senior citizens that they take to actually understand how the phone works, how telephones work.
Okay, notice this pronunciation of how. It sounds a little bit like have the phone works. We do see this with some Slavic speakers and some people from Central Asia, that sometimes the w becomes a v and sometimes how becomes a little bit like a have. You listen again and you tell me, do you feel like she's saying how or have?
Like for senior citizens that they take to actually understand how the phone works, how telephones work, or the laptops and stuff.
Have the telephones work. It just there's a slight hint of it. I mean, it's tiny, tiny hint. I will give the candidate the benefit of the doubt that it's not have, it's how, but yeah.
And can you think of any downsides or dangers to using technology too much?
Okay, if we're talking about obsessive usage of technology and
Google finds that nice noun usage, obsessive usage of something.
like when one abuses, then of course there might be some negative sides of it. For example, again, related to health, the eyesight might be um, like, damaged.
No, again, I don't agree with that, right? I don't agree that using technology damages your eyesight. I think that looking at a screen for too long can make your eyes feel tired, but I don't think it has any negative effect on your eyesight. I could be wrong, but I vaguely remember a few years ago reading an article that said, no, it's a myth that looking at screens, the idea that looking at screens damages your eyesight is a myth. It's not true. And so in this case, the candidate is saying something which, in my opinion, is false. Would I mark her down for that? No. Again, I have been criticized before. This has been a criticism against me that I mark candidates down because I disagree with them. So I just want to point out some cases now where I disagree with the candidate. I don't believe that looking at a screen damages your eyes. It might make your eyes feel tired, but it does not damage your eyesight. But again, it is perfectly fine for the candidate to have a point of view or to have an opinion that is even perhaps false. That's okay, right? It's okay. I would never mark a candidate down for that.
Or chronic pains in neck and back. So it's like all about the
Oh, that's true.
posture. So it's a very important to learn how to use the technology that wouldn't
And again, to learn how to use, again, I feel like that w in how just sounds a little bit like a v. Again, let's listen again.
learn how to use the technology,
Learn how to use, have to use, have to use. No?
learn how to use the
Learn have to use. There is just that slight v in there. So, do be careful with that because everything else in your pronunciation is perfect.
technology that wouldn't hurt or harm us, rather bring benefits.
Some middle-aged or perhaps older people say that technology is responsible for younger generations being too lazy. Are they right?
So I'm freestyling a little bit with my questions now, just trying to think like, okay, can I, knowing that the candidate is a young person and I don't know if it's okay to throw that accusation that some older people say that technology makes them lazy. I want to make the candidate feel, just put her under a little bit of pressure, just to see how she responds, because that's what we want to do with our high-level candidates.
Well, I can see their point.
Cool, again, a nice concession. So again, this is another really good rhetorical device of conceding. Well, I can see their point. and we might say something, but, and we might say the opposite. So really high level of discourse.
I believe this. Well, the thing is not the technology, but the
Love this. The thing is, it's really, yeah, a great way of preparing the listener for what's coming next.
what technology offers. One can just decide how to use it for.
Again, am I going crazy with the have to? Am I let's listen to that how to again, just one more time, and I won't mention it after this. Again, is it how or have? You tell me.
What technology offers. One can just decide how to use it
Have to use it. I hear the slightest v in there.
for. And I don't think that parents or grandparents should just say that and just neglect on this. They actually
Neglect on this, not on neglect this, neglect something. Not neglect on this.
need to control the usage, daily usage of the internet, because technology is not only about TikToks and Reels and Shorts. It offers like far more things than just some videos on the internet.
Again, really, really talented speaker. Love the way that she sets up her ideas. And finally, how do you think future technological advancements will affect our daily lives?
Um,
Again, a tricky question, right? Because future technological advancements is so broad, and how it will affect our daily lives, it's not easy to answer.
Actually, the first thing that came to my mind is
First thing that came to mind is a bit more common than came to my mind. So with some expressions, we use this possessive adjective my, like to do my best or something like this. But in some of them, we don't use this my, like to lose weight, not to lose my weight, or the first thing that came to mind rather than came to my mind. Now, came to my mind definitely isn't a mistake, but if we're looking for the most natural usage, for me, the first thing that came to mind was, or the first thing that comes to mind is, that just sounds a little more natural.
artificial intelligence taking over, becoming widespread. Um, Maybe they're gonna replace some friends. They're still like even this they can replace friends, therapists, and stuff. But I feel like AI would kinda influence the way we talk, and
I don't know about would here. AI would influence. I mean, if we're making predictions, I think AI will. No, so would it really isn't a great modal verb for predicting the future. Could be used for hypothesizing, perhaps, but when we're making predictions about the future, we want to avoid this would and use that will or might or is likely to.
can communicate. Maybe we will have something like, I don't know, we like the picture appears like a 3D model of a person appears in front of you, and that's how you communicate, more of a face-to-face
Okay, and I hear slightly have, but okay.
interaction, not through the skin, like screen. Sorry.
Cool. So she skin changes it to screen, not a problem at all. Again, that's the type of stuff you would expect Elwyn users to make. That's the type of slip that they would make. They mispronounce something, they hear it immediately, and then they correct it. Yeah, absolutely fine. Okay, thank
So I
you.
think like, yes.
That is the end of the test. All right, so a very, very, very strong performance from the candidate. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Some of the people in the chat said 7, some people said 7.5, some people said 8, and some people said 8.5. So, most people recognize that she is, a C candidate, which is good. But, quite easy to see that. You don't need to be a specialist teacher or a linguist or something to recognize that the candidate can speak English rather well. Fluency and coherence. Let's start giving scores. I think her score is probably slightly lower than I first thought. Fluency and coherence, I'm going to give an 8 for this. So, your technique in parts 1 and 3 is just perfect. Great. However, in part 2, there seems to be just a slight lack of focus and progression. I want to see that progress in part 2, and I just felt like there was a lot of stuff where you're saying something and adding a detail, and then saying something and adding a bit more detail. So again, it's a very small thing, but I think you could benefit from, developing your strategy. The way that you handle the questions in part 1 and 3 is really expert level. That's at band 9. The way that you handle part 2, it's fine. You're speaking, you're on topic, you're speaking fluently enough, your ideas are clear. It's just whether that flow of speech and whether you remain in that focus zone, that zone of focus for long enough. Yeah, so maybe just 8 for fluency and coherence. At times, there are just a few moments, even in part 1 and part 3, there are times where the fluency just breaks up a little bit, where you're just trying to find a word. I forget the word, broadcast, you were trying to find that word. Oh, they broadcast something. So there were just a couple of cases where I thought that pause is caused by her trying to find that word. It's slight, but it's just about noticeable. Lexical resource. Again, I think you have the range for a 9, but again, I'm going to give 8 for this. So again, you have a wonderful range, which allows you to speak about a variety of topics confidently and with precision. There are some cases where you use something slightly inaccurate. For example, once in a month instead of once a month, or you use neglect on something, and perhaps a couple of instances of slightly forced vocab, perhaps. Game changer I thought was okay, but there was something about youngsters, they can help people, they can give a hand to their grandparents, and it's okay, you've already used help and now you're just going to use a synonym to add on to that. So be careful that you don't try to overuse your idiomatic language. It's great that you're demonstrating it. It's great that you know all of this vocab, but sometimes students and candidates can know so much vocab that they try to force it out of themselves, which can slightly affect the appropriacy of vocab. And that is a key thing to think about when you're at that high level. If you're at band 5, band 6, and you're aiming for a 7, or let's just say you're aiming for a 6 or a 6.5, you don't need to worry so much about appropriacy. Is this the appropriate usage of the word? But certainly if you're at band 8, band 9, that is, something you might think of. Give a hand to somebody. It just felt a little bit off. So yeah, lexical resource 8. I do think you have range of a 9. I'm absolutely sure that you have the range of the 9. It's just the accuracy of the vocab, sometimes slightly off. Grammatical range and accuracy. Again, I'm going to say the same thing. I'm going to say an 8 here. And again, I want to say you have the grammatical range of a 9. You effortlessly produce an incredible variety of structures, right? It's not obvious. With some candidates who are trying to show off their grammar, it's really obvious what they're trying to do. But answers not as often as I would like to. That's just so grammatically lovely. Not as often as I would like to. I love little bits of grammar like this. Rather than, candidates that are mechanically you ask them a question, okay, what did you do yesterday? Say, I played football. But if I had not played football yesterday, I would have stayed at home, where they're obviously trying to activate this hypothetical, counterfactual, third conditional. None of your grammar feels like that. Your grammar emerges naturally. It comes out and it's wonderful and it's so accurate. However, there were some noticeable mistakes, and I'm even going to say systematic mistakes. and I'm talking about this plus plural noun. You had this quite a few times. This this buildings, or this building sites, or this devices, or something like that. Also in part 2, you referred to your laptop as them, and we spoke about this after your test, and that use of them just felt a little bit strange. So yeah, grammatical range and accuracy 8. Again, you have the grammatical range of a 9, but I think you have the accuracy, which is slightly lower, and that just pulls it down to an 8 for me. Sorry. Pronunciation, I'm going to give the 9. So despite this slight issue with your pronunciation of how, I think your pronunciation is on the money. You sustain natural intonation even over long stretches of speech, which is good. There are also lots of elements of connected speech, very noticeable. Your phonological range is also the ability to produce those like English sounds, like the vowels and the consonants, the buts and the cut and the a and the and the and the o. Your phonological range is just great. Apart from that have don't have to do it to learn have to do it. You could just slightly hear it. So an examiner who, I mean, I didn't notice it first time around, right? And so it's possible that an examiner might not notice it there, but watching the recording back, when you can, analyze every tiny detail, maybe that is just, a slight limitation on your phonological range. So overall, we get 8, 8, 8, 9. So that gives us a score overall of 8.25, which unfortunately for you rounds down to an 8.0. This puts you at the high end of advanced. So right on that border between C1 and C2. If I was testing you, if this was a placement test to understand like which group you were going to go in, I would put you in a C2 group, not in a C1 group. I do think you are, just about at that C2 level. I think 8.5 would be a fair score. And I definitely think there are, just a couple of things you could improve on. So areas of improvement. One thing I would say is, don't worry about forcing. Don't worry about forcing high level vocab. Your vocab range is already amazing. The only problem that you have is that you know too much vocab and you are, keen to get a lot of that vocab out. Don't worry about it. Use the vocab that emerges in your language. Don't always be thinking about like extra synonyms and extra ways of saying things. Great stuff. Most importantly, perhaps, is you should find a good strategy for part 2, how to take notes, how to maintain a flow of speech, how to make a long-term progress from, beginning, middle, end, or first part, second part. So you should find that strategy and stick to it. There are lots of different strategies out there. I'm not going to say one is better than the other. I think you have enough flexibility as a student to find a strategy, to work on it, and to make it work for you. And I think that would possibly push your fluency and coherence to that band 9. You should find a good strategy for part 2. That's all I'll put. Anything else? This plus singular noun, that plus singular noun, these plus plural noun. I have 2 E's in my these. And those plus plural noun. You know this. I know you know this. Maybe it's a pronunciation issue. Maybe it's a slip of grammar. Who knows? But get this right, because it is noticeable when you make this mistake, not these mistakes. But when you make this mistake multiple times during the test, it becomes noticeable. And it's difficult to give a 9 when we see this systematic error with this quite basic bit of grammar. So yeah, do be careful about that. But yeah, not much, really not much to work on. The candidate's already at a super high level. I'm a big believer that nobody really needs a 9. Like, there are some prestigious schools, if you want to teach English, they might ask you to get band 9 in IELTS. In those cases, you might need a 9. For pretty much everything else, I really don't think anyone needs a 9. Some people are so focused on the 9. Be happy with the 8. Be happy with the 8.5. It's more than enough. I really don't think it's worth that extra stress. If it's just for your ego, I want to be a person that got a 9, I don't think it's worth that extra stress to go from an 8 to a 9. If you're at band 8, I would say relax, welcome the experience, embrace the experience, be confident knowing that you are going to go in there in the top 1%, and that when you speak, the examiner is immediately going to recognize that, like, wow, this candidate is amazing. Whether you try to use that high level vocab or grammar or not, it's going to be, you're going to get a very, very high score. So, don't freak out and don't worry or be nervous or worry that your vocab isn't quite wide enough. You will be, if you are at band 8, band 8.5, when you walk into that exam, you will be probably the strongest candidate that examiner has seen this week, this month, possibly even this year. So, enjoy that experience and forget about the 9. It's not worth it. If this candidate got a band 9 in the speaking, I wouldn't be massively surprised. I expect her to get 8.5. I don't think she'll get 9 in all 4. I think that's always just an not impossible, but a very, very difficult thing to achieve. If the candidate gets 8.5, she should be, absolutely, should be super proud of herself for that. But even 8.0 is an amazing, amazing achievement. Yeah, so please do let me know if you think I've misjudged this, or if there's something wrong with my marking, or if there's something right with my marking. Also, if you would like your own free practice IELTS speaking test with feedback, or if you would like me to check your IELTS writing, you can request this on my Telegram channel, Expert Examiner. A link to this channel is given in the description below. But I will leave it there for now. Have a wonderful evening. See you all soon, and bye-bye.